that you get tested on. So the standard textbooks that you read, of course, have like a lot of unnecessary details, which you don't have time to read that because you have 19 subjects to cover. So the kind of concept base that you need is either a concise textbook, like there's something called ROMS, that's Review of All Medical Sciences. So that's like one textbook which has all the subjects in a short manner. Or the most commonly used thing is video lectures. So video lectures, and we're going to talk about like which platform would be ideal. But video lectures give you like the best understanding about the material. The second thing is you need subject-wise notes, and I would advise you to make them yourself, because when you're making them, you're watching a video, you're understanding the concept, and then you're making it. If you're going to buy notes because you don't have time to make them, that's also okay, but I'm not really sure how much you're going to understand, because sometimes I don't understand my own notes. So like if you have watched a video and you have written it down, then somewhere in the back of your mind that understanding of that concept is there, and you need to revise these notes several times. So don't like write down huge essays, it's just going to be point wise, just the important things. Okay. The third thing you need is question banks. So you need topic wise MCQs. So suppose you need it for all 19 subjects, but you also need like previous year question papers, not just topic wise MCQs. And previous year question papers are available everywhere, but don't go more than 5 to 6 years back is what I would suggest. The next thing is test series. So you need to keep attempting like grand tests and also smaller tests, because grand tests take a whole 3 hours to write, and you can't be writing that every day. So in between of your grand tests, you need to be writing smaller tests, subject wise or mixed, that doesn't matter. And the last thing is a doubt solving source. And what I mean by that is just like, suppose you're reading your notes or there's an MCQ that you don't understand, you need somewhere that you can figure out. It could be like a textbook, it could be a professor, anything. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about how you have to go about it. The first thing you need to do is learn your concepts from your concept base. Okay. And if you're in third and fourth year, then this is easy because you have a lot of time. If you're an intern or a post intern, then you have a little less time, but still, this is the most important step. Like you can't just be reading notes and MCQs and trying to figure it out. You need to learn the actual concept. The second step is you need to condense whatever you've read into easily revisable notes. What I mean by easily revisable is like it has to, I mean, it depends on person to person. You can either make it colorful or, whatever way works for you. It can be on your iPad, it can be on your phone, or it can be in an actual paper notebook. Whatever it is, it has to be easily accessible and revisable. The third thing you need to do is multiple revisions of your notes. So the idea is not to study everything. The idea is to study like the most important things and read it again and again, because no one will be able to remember it by reading it just once. So the only way that you're going to cover all 19 subjects is actually to read it again and again. And the last step is to solve questions. And once you solve the question, you have to review it. And whatever you get wrong, you have to like read that whole topic, not just that MCQ's explanation. Suppose I get something in physiology of respiration wrong, then I have to go back and read that entire topic because they can test another part of that topic. Okay, so timeline. If you're in first and second year, please don't think about entrances. Just focus on your like basics. Third and fourth year, is like the ideal time. You have enough time to read your standard textbooks and all of that, so you'll get your concepts really clear. Again, in third year okay, but fourth year preferably study for like your exams, not so much for your entrances. But yeah, you can keep solving MCQs parallelly. And intern, post intern, you have no time to read those big textbooks, so you have to use the resources that I mentioned earlier. Your schedule, how it should go, of course, it's going to depend on how much time you have, but the number of days for each subject is going to vary. You can't give the same time for medicine and for dermat. So there are long subjects, that's medicine, surgery, OBG. Even I would include like physiology and PSM in these because they're pretty long. And intermediate is like, I would say, pediatrics, um, Ophthal, ENT. These are like, it won't take as much time as medicine, but you also can't finish it in one day. And short subjects are radiology, dermat. These things you just can't be wasting too much time on because they don't ask too many questions, and anesthesia also. Um, Not that they don't ask too many questions, but it's that you have less material, and if you cover that, you can get a lot of questions right. So these are actually high yield. So you should be finishing these short subjects for sure. Don't think that they're short, so you're going to leave them behind. Okay. So in final year, I would advise you to focus on clinical subjects because that really helps you later, and you have to revise your first and second year subjects later on. If you start revising medicine like during internship or after internship, it's going to get really hard. So if you finish your final year subjects in final year itself, then it'll be super easy for you later. And in internship, you need to go back to your first year, second year, third year subjects because those you studied a long time ago and you really won't remember the specifics. And also something that I advise is you go posting wise in internship. So like at the beginning of internship, what I did is I made a timetable. Ki when I finish surgery posting, by that time I should have finished reading my surgery notes. It doesn't always work, but at least it gives you some kind of milestone that you should be focusing on during your internship. Um, Another thing is you need to solve MCQs every day or at least most days a week. I mean, don't think that, first you'll read your notes, first you'll watch your videos, then you'll read your notes, and then you'll get to MCQs because then it just becomes too much at the end. If you start solving MCQs from the beginning, then you get a habit of how you get the like idea of how to solve it. And if you've read something today, don't solve the MCQs today because it'll obviously be fresh in your mind. Try to solve it a few days afterwards. And if you like get a lot of things wrong, you might have to revise that topic again. Let's go back. Yeah. When do you start attempting tests? So, like I said, don't wait until you finish a subject to start solving MCQs and tests, okay? Because it just never happens. You mostly won't finish a subject ever because there's so much. So start giving tests at the beginning. You probably won't get a very good score, but don't worry about that. All that you need to see is that you have an upward graph. So as in when you give tests, you should just do like even if it's 2% better than your previous test, then that's progress. That's all that has to happen. And yeah, another thing is review. So like I said, any MCQ you solve, you have to review it. Suppose you're just solving MCQs and you're like, I'll look at it later, then it's kind of pointless because you don't even know if you got it right or wrong. And especially when you do tests, because a test will take you 3 hours, and by the end of 3 hours, you'll be super tired and you won't feel like reviewing it. But if you don't get around to reviewing it, then you're going to make the same mistakes again in the next test. So it was kind of pointless. And what happened for me was that after that 3 hours to review the test, it was taking me at least 2 minutes per question to read the explanation, and that means you're taking like 6 to 8 hours to review a test. So it was very difficult to do in one day. So I'd advise you to like split it. Maybe you can do an hour of review each day and finish it within like 3 to 4 days. Um, So let's some general things I want to say. If you have allotted, so you've made a timetable, right? Because you need some kind of way to measure your progress. So if you've allotted 6 days for medicine, you try to finish it in that. But if you can't, don't say like, okay, let me give myself another 6 days. Because in doing that, you won't be able to cover 19 subjects. You'll end up just doing like 7 or 8 that you feel are important, and you'll miss out on a lot. So you try to move on to the next. But if this is the first time you're reading the subject, then of course you do have to finish it. So you can give yourself a few days extension, but still you need to strike a balance. Like you can't do one subject for 1 month. Okay, it's just not going to work. Yeah, another thing that I was telling you is that you need to revise everything that you read, right? So, like, just pick one or two sources and trust them. So, if you pick Marrow, you need to trust that whatever you read in Marrow is enough. Don't start thinking, okay, should I also buy dams? Should I also, read my textbook? It's you're never going to be able to revise everything. So, the aim is to study only those many things that you can revise. Another thing that helps is if you mix up the way you study, you read your notes, you watch your videos. You also have to look at images because all of these tests nowadays have a lot of images to identify. And you can even discuss with someone who's preparing it the same way you are, and you can solve questions. And all of this within a single day is what I'm saying. Because if you read notes from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., you're definitely going to get bored and you're going to go slower than what you should be going. And one more thing that helped me was keeping a small notebook, like apart from your 19 subjects ka notebook. If you keep another small book, what I did was I kept a folder on my phone, and whatever I used to get wrong, I used to have it in that. And that folder, you need to revise even more than you're revising your other notes. So, like every alternate day, I used to go through all the screenshots, images in that folder, and it has to be things that you get wrong. Don't start putting everything in that folder. Just like really, really volatile things that you keep getting wrong. So for me, it was parasite life cycles, not all of them, the important ones, and mechanism of action of few drugs, and just things that you get wrong. Okay, so let's talk about what resources you can use. I'm not saying it's necessary that you buy any of these. If you want to prepare on your own, that's also okay. It just becomes a little harder because all of these platforms have been in this PG preparation industry for like years. So they spend all their time analyzing the papers, understanding the high yield topics, creating their question banks. So they've kind of consolidated all the information in one place. So it becomes easier for you. You don't have to do all that work of consolidating it. Becomes easier if you buy these, but again, I'm saying you can do it by yourself if you want to. So videos, you have Marrow, Dams, Prep Ladder, all of them are good. The thing is, Marrow is excellent in the material, but a downside is that it's super vast. So unless you're starting in third year, I really don't think you'll be able to finish all the Marrow videos. Um, Dams, they have their live classes. I think they have some online courses also. I think Dams videos are a bit less vast than Marrow. Like Dams finishes one long subject in maybe 4 days of 12 hours each or something like that. So it's not too long, it's doable. Prep Ladder again is good, but there, if you're doing it on the app, then I felt the user interface is not that easy to study from, unlike Marrow, which is super easy to use and super convenient. Notes, you can use Marrow, Dams, even Prep Ladder. Prep Ladder, I felt were like not super comprehensive. Marrow, again, very, very long notes. So if you have made them yourself by watching the videos, then okay. If you're going to buy the notes, I really don't know if you'll be able to finish. Dams notes also, if you're making them from the videos, then it's good enough. They kind of cover everything that you need to know. And whatever's missing, you'll get to know as and when you solve the MCQs. You also going to need MCQs. So I suggest Marrow for MCQs is amazing because they have their app. Because see, Dams and PrepLadder app is not great to use. Like it will crash, and I just even the explanations are not great. Marrow, very well written explanations. They have these custom modules that you can create according to your study schedule, and they have previous year question papers also in their app. So I would suggest Marrow definitely for MCQs. And also, I would suggest that you study from two different platforms. So suppose you're reading the notes of Marrow and you solve the MCQs of Marrow, then definitely you're going to get everything right because they're going to ask questions from their own material. So I would suggest you mix it up, watch the videos of another platform and solve MCQs from somewhere else. You also get these MCQ textbooks which have compiled like last few years ka MCQs, but make sure you're buying something that's not outdated. Like don't be solving 2010 MCQs. Last 5 years is what I would suggest. And previous year question papers you have to finish solving, because every exam they definitely ask a minimum of 5 previous year questions, like word to word, even the same values they will give you. So I mean, you don't want to miss out on those 5 marks, right? Some of the other resources apart from these that helped me was first aid. So first aid is basically an Emily book, but everything is summarized really well in that. They have their tables and their diagrams, but it's more for revision. So I don't think you can study from first aid, and only use first aid if you have time, but it's a great resource. You can get the PDF or you can buy it and check it out if you like it. And you can also annotate it with your own like notes next to the book, right? Um, Another thing is Dirty Medicine on YouTube. It's a great YouTube channel, mostly again targeted at MLE students, but he explains things really well. Especially biochem for me was horrible. I could never remember the cycles, but he has a whole playlist on all the metabolic cycles, and he makes it super easy. And Unacademy again has some really good educators, and these are all free, by the way. You don't have to buy the videos to watch Zainab Vora and Preeti Sharma. So Zainab Vora is basically something that I learned from Aishwarya Sasi when she had done this session. And she's this Dr. Zainab is a radiologist, but she teaches all the subjects, and she teaches in a really like concise manner and in a really like interesting manner. So, and she teaches it super fast. So I feel you should use it for revision once you finish studying. I had used Zainab Vora's videos in the last 3 months before NEET. She has these revision series and like highly volatile topics and pictures. In 45 minutes, she'll cover a lot. So that's what I did. Preeti Sharma is for microbio. Microbio was another one of my super weak aspects. I could not remember these parasites and fungi and all of that. So she makes it easy. They give you a lot of mnemonics. Um, so yeah, this is what I would suggest. That's all I have. If I've missed out anything, you can ask me if you have any questions, or you can put it in the chat.
Thank you so much, Mahin. Shall I go ahead with the first question? Um, so the question that I have for you is regarding the resources that you had mentioned, GANs and Marrow. Which was the one that you used, and when did you start using it? Which year did you start
Okay,
using it?
yeah. So I had used DAMS actually. In third year, I had attended their classes. This was before COVID, so they had in-person classes. Um, but the thing is, this used to take up my entire weekend and it was quite depressing. But now that I look back, it might have been worth it because I already had my notes ready. So I didn't have to sit and watch any videos and attend any classes and make notes from scratch. So but I did miss a few, so I still had to cover up those. I used DAMS for their live for the in-person classes, and I used Marrow for the question bank and the tests. And I also had a few odd textbooks like question banks and all of that, PGI pattern and all of those. So and like I mentioned, I used towards the end Unacademy and YouTube.
Thank you so much.
If anyone else in the meeting wants to ask, they can unmute or, raise your hand or put it in the chat, anything.
So I think we wait for another minute or so, and if nobody has any questions, then we can wrap up the session. Is that okay, Mahan?
Yeah, sure, sure. That works.
If you have any questions, please do ask it right now, or like leave it in the chat box, because otherwise we'll be closing the session. So I don't think there are any more questions. So thank you so much, Mahin, for coming and doing this. Thank you guys for attending, and that's it for today.
Actually, I just see a chat in the chat box just now. Christina has asked, I'm studying from Marrow for 1 month, but I find it difficult to study from books because time is not sufficient. Christina, can I know which year you are in? Because
Ma'am, third year.
third year, okay. So by books, you mean to say your textbooks for MBBS, right? Your standard textbooks.
Is for theory exam preparation.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing is, you should focus on studying from your textbooks first and don't treat Marrow as your primary preparation source. So Marrow is better to use after final year if you're an intern or a post intern to learn the concepts. The first, if you're in third year, you should be reading your textbooks itself. They'll give you the concepts much more comprehensively, and because later, because Marrow will only include what they feel is important and what they feel gets tested, but the textbook itself is going to tell you everything. So since you have the time, you're in third year, you should read from the textbooks. Don't try to study from Marrow. I suggest you just solve your questions and tests from Marrow for now. And once you have finished your exams, then you can read from Marrow.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
So another question that I had was, if we attend the NEET PG during the internship, but we plan on doing the rules on, then would this course matter even after 2 years, or would we have to attempt the exam again at the end of 2 years?
So if you're planning to do the rural bond and you get a good NEET PG score, then you either have to break the bond or you have to write NEET again at the end of your bond, because the NEET PG score is only valid for that counseling. So right after you write NEET, they have a session, a counseling session. You can only take up a seat in that counseling. You can't take it up 2 years later. So you can write NEET an internship, and if you get a score, you can break the bond. Otherwise, you finish the bond and then you write. But still, you can write it even during your internship just to see how it is, because these tests are a bit scary if you're writing it for the first time. So if you've already written it twice before you actually finish your bond, then it's good for you. You already know how it's going to go.
Thank you. Does anyone have any more questions? If not, then we can end the session now. Is
Yeah,
that
I
okay,
think
Maya?
yeah, I think there are no more questions. Anyway, if someone has, they can always message me or email me.
Okay. Thank you so much then.
Thank you. Thanks, Megha. Thanks everyone for joining.